In a chilling collision of wealth and evil, a young heiress's life of promise was brought to a brutal end. Her innocence was shattered by a criminal whose twisted mind meticulously planned every move. This is the story of Lesley Whittle, a teenager whose life was taken in one of Britain's most notorious crimes. It's a tale of wealth, fear, obsession, and death. And at its heart is a man known as the Black Panther, a name that once struck terror across England. Lesley Whittle was born into privilege. The Whittle family lived in Shropshire, in a comfortable countryside home. Her father, George Whittle, had built a fortune through a successful coach business. When he died in 1967, he left behind a vast inheritance, almost £82,000, set aside for Lesley when she came of age. She was described by those who knew her as a quiet, bright, and kind young woman. At 17 years old, she was preparing for her future, living a life filled with books, studies, and the ordinary innocence of youth. But privilege can also paint a target. Unknown to Lesley, the money she had inherited and her family's wealth had drawn the attention of a man who had long since turned his back on morality. His name was Neilson, but Britain would come to know him by another name, the Black Panther. Neilson was a former soldier, trained, disciplined, and dangerous. But after leaving the military, he had spiraled into crime, starting with burglaries, then escalating to armed robberies. Neilson became one of Britain's most wanted criminals. He was meticulous in his planning, wearing black clothing that allowed him to move like a shadow. Police nicknamed him the Black Panther because of his ability to stalk his victims silently and strike with lethal precision. But Neilson wasn't just a thief, he was a murderer. During his robberies, he had killed postmasters, leaving behind a trail of death. He wanted more than just money. He wanted power, control, and fear. And when he set his eyes on the Whittle family, he devised his most ambitious and terrifying crime yet, the kidnapping of Lesley Whittle. It was the night of January 14th, 1975, when terror came to Highley. Lesley was at home, alone in her bedroom. The house was quiet, the air heavy with winter cold. Outside, shadows moved across the garden, the shadows of Donald Neilson. He had studied the Whittle home, memorized its entrances and exits, and waited for the perfect moment. Clad in his black clothing, armed and prepared, Neilson broke in. When he entered Lesley's room, the young girl was startled awake. Standing before her was a masked figure with a gun. Fear froze her body. He wasted no words. He tied her up, gagged her, and carried her into the darkness of the night. That night, the quiet countryside was shattered forever. The next morning, the Whittle family discovered the chilling truth. Lesley was gone. In her place was a note, carefully written, demanding ransom. Neilson wanted £50,000, a fortune at the time. He left instructions that were detailed, cryptic, and terrifying. Any attempt to alert the police, any mistake in following his commands, and Lesley would die. But despite Neilson's threats, the police were quickly involved. A young girl's life was at stake, and every hour mattered. The ransom note described precise steps the family must take, driving to specific phone boxes, waiting for calls, listening carefully to instructions. Neilson thought he had created the perfect system to control his victims, but things would not go as he planned. Where had Neilson taken Lesley? Deep inside Staffordshire, hidden beneath Bathpool Park, lay a system of underground drainage shafts. It was a place of darkness, dampness, and silence. Few people ever ventured there. To Neilson, it was the perfect prison. He led Lesley into the pitch-black tunnel system and forced her into a narrow shaft. To control her, he secured her by the neck with a steel wire attached to a metal grating. She could move slightly but not far. The cold concrete walls echoed with her fear. She was alone in the dark, trapped like an animal in a cage. This was where she would wait while her family scrambled to meet the demands of the Black Panther. On the night of January 16th, 2 days after Lesley's abduction, her brother Ronald set out to follow Neilson's instructions. Driving through the night, Ronald tried to follow every detail, but the plan was complicated. Neilson had created a labyrinth of phone calls and directions. At one point, Ronald missed a call at a designated phone box. The silence that followed was chilling. He waited, but no further instructions came. Panic set in. He returned home with the money still in his possession. Neilson, watching from the shadows, decided the family had failed him. And for Lesley, the clock began to run out. As hours turned to days, Lesley remained trapped underground. She was cold, hungry, and terrified. Some believe Neilson may have visited her, bringing food or water, though no one knows for certain how much contact they had. What is clear is that her life hung by a thread. At some point, whether through panic, neglect, or intention, Neilson left Lesley chained in such a way that she could not move properly. When investigators later found her body, they discovered the heartbreaking truth. She had died of suffocation, strangled by the very wire meant to hold her captive. Alone in the darkness, her young life was extinguished. The disappearance of Lesley Whittle became one of Britain's biggest manhunts. Police forces across the country searched desperately for clues. For months, Neilson evaded capture. His knowledge of military tactics, his careful disguises, and his ruthless planning allowed him to stay one step ahead. But his crimes continued. His robberies grew bolder, and his violence escalated. He was becoming reckless. Finally, in December 1975, almost a year after Lesley's abduction, Neilson's luck ran out. Police officers in Mansfield noticed a suspicious man lurking near a house. When they confronted him, a struggle broke out. Neilson pulled a gun, but the officers overpowered him. The Black Panther was finally in chains. The arrest of Donald Neilson shocked the nation. When his true identity and crimes were revealed, Britain recoiled in horror. He was tried for multiple murders, including the killing of Lesley Whittle. The courtroom heard in chilling detail how he had planned the abduction, how he had built her underground prison, and how he had manipulated her family with cold precision. The jury returned their verdict, guilty. Neilson was sentenced to life imprisonment, where he would spend the rest of his days behind bars. But for the Whittle family, justice could never heal the wound. Their daughter, sister, and loved one was gone forever. The kidnapping and death of Lesley Whittle left scars not only on her family, but on Britain as a whole. Parents locked their doors tighter at night. Communities whispered about the Black Panther long after he was captured. The case also changed how police handled kidnappings and ransom demands. Mistakes made during the investigation became lessons for the future. For Lesley, her story became a haunting reminder of how, even in a quiet village, darkness can strike without warning. Are you brave enough to delve deeper into the darkest true crimes? Subscribe and follow us to uncover more chilling mysteries and unsolved enigmas the world tried to forget.